Can you hear me now?
I can.
Awesome. Welcome to the River of Money podcast with your host. I'm your host, obviously, Burton Newcomb. We talk about all things real estate, small business, entrepreneurship, and stuff like that. Today, I got my girl Bonnie on here with me, and we're both in Action Academy. We were both in Cancun recently. We've had a couple other calls, and she's a powerhouse in the real estate world. She manages multifamily assets. She's an investor. She owns her own properties. She's married. She's a mom, and she's also in the equestrian world. I didn't know that until I looked at her Facebook earlier today. And she talked about a recent acquisition she did back in July. Is what you said, July? She bought North Park Apartments, and she had a ton of other valuable insights she's going to talk all about. And I definitely want to introduce her on. She's awesome to talk to. I really love Bonnie, and I want to know all about her plans for improving the property. I think she's already started some improvements on the property, how she financed, how she found the deal, stuff like that. So, without any further ado, I'm going to welcome my girl, Miss Bonnie Wayman, to the pod and tell us all about it. So, go ahead and introduce yourself to us, Miss Bonnie.
Thanks for having me on, Burton. I'm excited to be here. I'll just give you a quick background, kind of how I got into real estate. Maybe start there.
Yeah,
Does that sound
absolutely.
good? Okay. Well, like many people, I kind of accidentally got into real estate. I was in college and I was living in the dorms, and I was paying a ton of money to live in the dorms and really miserable. And this was 2008. And my parents were like, well, we should buy a house together and you can rent it out to your friends. And so I bought a house in Denver in 2008. Had no idea what I was doing, but bought a house and, went to Barnes and Noble and bought Landlords for Dummies, I think was the book I bought, and rented that little house out for 7 years in Denver, and got my degree, got my MBA. I'm working in corporate America, doing the thing. I think I was making $40,000 a year at that point in my corporate job. And we decided to leave Denver, and we sold our house and we made $100,000 on it. And I was like, oh my God, that I didn't work very hard for this house to make $100,000 on it. And I am working my butt off for my $40,000 a year corporate job. And so the light bulbs sort of went off. And so then I just did the really slow thing, listen to the bigger pockets, bought a single family house, bought another single family house. It's Brendan Turner calls it the stack. And I definitely did that method. Single family. Then I bought a 6-plex and a 4-plex and a 5-plex. And then I kind of got into the syndication world and joined a group on the asset management side. So I do operations. I consider myself like the COO of an apartment complex. And so then I've been part of that team, Wild Oak, now for 3 years, almost 4. And we buy larger apartment complexes, so 50 units and up. Yeah.
So,
and still buying smaller stuff on the side too.
So how many units do you have ownership in?
Yeah, I was thinking I should have done that math this morning. Over 500.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Dang, you're way ahead of me in life. I got to catch up with you.
I'm a couple years older than you too.
And so the syndication, how does y'all syndication work?
Yeah, so most of our syndications are 506B, meaning that I always say B for buddies, meaning that we only raise from people that we know. And so most of our syndications are 10 million and under, where we're raising, let's say, 2 to 5 million, which includes the down payment and any or some of the capital expenditures. And so we get the property under contract, and then we go out and raise money from friends, family, acquaintances to close the deal. And then they become part owners, and we're also owners as well.
So are they like debt partners or equity partners?
They're equity partners. So everybody is a percentage owner of the deal.
Yeah.
So we're on the general partner side, and they're on the limited partner side.
So like quarterly you send them statements and payouts, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it depends on the deal is what I'd say. But for the most part, where the general partners are either 30 or 20%, and the limited partners are either 70 to 80% owners of the deal. And then we do distributions quarterly after a certain time frame. So if we take over the deal, it's normally at least 6 months before we begin distributions. And then everybody gets distributions as a percent of their ownership. So if you put in $100,000 as a limited partner versus somebody who put in $500,000 as a limited partner, then you get a percentage based on your ownership.
And what kind of returns y'all typically looking at on these payouts and like equity wise and stuff?
Yeah. So our normal target is about 15% returns, but that includes the returns when you sell. So it's called an average annual return based on how much you're getting in distributions per year. And then most of our deals are targeted to sell in 5 years. So, and most of our deals we're targeting at about doubling somebody's money. So a decent percent of your returns will come at the exit, but then you're basically getting like cash on cash up until then.
So
like
if somebody,
10%, let's say 10%
yeah.
cash on cash.
So if somebody wants to get, so how long are you holding people in the syndication on deals and stuff?
Yeah. So our goal is 5 years, most deals. Now, some of those are going to be 3 years if the market's in our favor. And we'll talk about debt when we get there, but we're really careful on our debt that we don't have huge prepayments so that if the market is awesome in 3 years, we can get out in 3 years. But most of our deals we underwrite for 5 years.
Awesome. See, I didn't even know you were in this world, to be quite honest with you. And so, if somebody wants to get out early, like say somebody's locked into a 5-year period, but they're like, we're locked into 5 years, but we need our money today. How do y'all handle that?
It's a non-liquid investment. So you're in the deal for 5 years, and that's what we do. That's some of that priming that we're doing at the beginning with investors, right? Like, this is a not liquid investment. This investment carries risk. We don't want your last dollar. We don't want your reserve account, like this is an investment that you are going to turn over and it's going to sit there. And us as the GP team, we control with your best interests in mind, how long your money is going to sit there. I mean, if someone had there's really not a way to get out early.
So, like with my syndication, we had a 2-year lockup period, and because it's an illiquid asset, it's tied to real estate. Basically, if we have 12 months and a day after the 2 years to return it back to you, right? And so we have equity partners too. And like right now, like probably about 2-3 months ago, somebody who's been in since 23 was like, hey, I need my money, like in the next 30 or 45 days. And I was like, well, it's really, like not that simple. I was like, and so see, we offered to buy them out last year when we had cash and they didn't want to, but now all of a sudden they want to, right? And our money's already at work, and so I mean, theoretically, we're selling some properties right now because I'm trying to sell all my laundromats. I'm gonna sell all my single family rentals, my duplexes, stuff like that, and we're getting 1031 into an apartment complex, and so we got some cash coming to us from another entity that I'm a part of. That me and my partner, the general partners on a syndication. Me and him have another LLC that we started way back in like 2019, and so we're selling a bunch of stuff. Right, we got we got 7 properties under contract, I think something like that. And so we got enough cash to buy her out, but basically we're just buying her interest because I mean we're still waiting on other deals to accumulate from other strategies we do, right? Tax auction. I mean that takes a long time to bring money up to the table. I mean, we've got several $100,000 tied up for the last 3 years on just one deal that we're still waiting on a payout from because it's a tax deal. So I won't go into the details, but They hadn't redeemed the money. They hadn't redeemed it from us yet, and we hadn't been able to foreclose on them yet. It's a whole fucking deal, right? So navigating the whole syndication world is real tricky, you know. But ultimately, we're going to buy her out by the end of this year, probably in the next 20 or so days. And we got some cash coming to us from some others. We got 5 of them selling in the next 20 or so days. We're going to buy her out to make everybody happy, because you don't want somebody mad at you. You know,
No, and
government involved.
Investor relations is tricky, and it's really important, right? And it's something we take really seriously. Like, this is somebody's money. This could be their kid's college account. This could be their retirement savings. And so you have to respect that. And also, we spend a lot of time on the front end trying to educate investors to make sure it's a good fit. Again, you don't want somebody's last $50,000 because they might need it back urgently. And so if someone says, oh, I have only 50,000 in saving, I'd like to invest with you. No, you hold that $50,000. That's not a good time for you to invest yet, because it is illiquid.
We don't do that either. I mean, our partners are all high net worth. I'm probably the poorest person in the group, but sometimes people still need their money, or they get, they think it's a scam or something. I don't know. So it's just easier to buy them out and be done with it,
Yeah.
than that. So tell us about North Park Apartments. You got that back in July, right? And so how many doors is that?
Yeah, we closed on North Park Apartments with Wild Oak Capital in July. It's an 80-unit apartment complex. It's in Durant, Oklahoma, which is a tiny town, but we love it. It's about an hour and a half outside of Dallas, and it's about 30 minutes outside of Sherman, Texas. And the growth that is happening around Sherman, Texas in the chip manufacturing plants, and also the Choctaw Nation, casino area, is insane. And so it's like this little sleepy town that I had never heard of. And it's just growing so much because it's right there. We have an amazing property manager on site, and she is she cares about the tenants. She cares about the numbers. And so we bought it. Yeah, we bought it in July. We financed through a local bank. We love using local banks. We find that they're a lot easier to work with than using agency debt. And it also, they often have, I mentioned it earlier, but we're really sensitive to prepayment penalties. I often find that people, well, Freddie has the lowest rates and I'm going to get a lower rate. Cool. Well, you're locked in because the prepayment penalty is so much if you're not thinking about that. And so we love local banks. We worked with a local bank there to finance this. And then they also did another thing about local banks is that they often do a second. So they do your mortgage and then they do a second position line of credit, which is what we use for a lot of our renovations. And so it's great because we have this line of credit here sitting for 2 years that we pull for for renovations when we need it, but you're also not paying on that capital until you pull it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar. I do that too. I mean, and local banks are by far the best way to go. I mean, you can pull money from a lot of different revenue sources and different lenders and stuff. But in my experience, the local bank, for the same reasons, that they know the market, and they're more willing to finagle things around into your favor and give you better terms a lot of times, than some of these other lenders. It may not always be the best rate, but I mean, prepayment penalties can really kind of bite you in the ass. So I prefer local banks as well.
Yeah, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we drive by it every way on the way to our headquarters. Like, it's great, Oh yeah, I saw you pull the draw for the roof. We drove by. It looks great, And so it's also just a nicer way to do business, honestly, in my opinion, is that relationship piece that comes with working with local banks.
So y'all bought this property. How much was it?
4.6, I think. 4.6 million.
That's pretty sweet. That's
Yeah.
So when I sell all my stuff, I'm looking to spend in the 4 to 5 million range. And like I've looked at some like in North Atlanta where we can walk in the door, do some sweat equity, and have around 2.5, 3 million worth of equity built in with pretty light work, like painting and stuff. And so, what kind of upgrades are y'all planning? Are y'all in the process of and have already done on the apartment complex?
Yeah. So one thing I love about working with Wild Oak is that two things. We come in and we're focused on making this a place where tenants want to live. We believe not only in giving our investors returns, but that this is it's an important thing to make it a place where tenants are proud to call home, where they feel safe, where they are proud to bring friends and family. But that doesn't mean that every place that we own needs to be a Class A, granite countertop, stainless steel, sparkling pool location, right? That's not what everybody needs. And so we came in, we knew this property had bad roofs, and we called it the Pizza Hut apartments. It had that Pizza Hut style roof. And for reasons beyond me, they decided to paint it kind of a yellow and then the doors red. So it really looked like Pizza Hut. And so we just came in, we redid the roofs, which were an issue for the tenants because tons of tenants had roof leaks. And then we did a paint job to kind of refresh it, update the signage. And then on the interiors, we're going really slow. We're actually hitting our projected rents without doing any renovations inside so far. And so what we don't want to do is come in and spend $10,000 per unit to make it super fancy when that's not what the market wants, right? So when units are turning, we're cleaning them, we're painting them, we're probably putting in new floor, but we're not over renovating. And we're just going to kind of test this out. This is how we do it. And this is why the line of credit is beautiful, right? It's there if we find that the ROI is worth it to do a high level renovation. But my gut is that this market is not going to want that, right? And we'd spend $10,000 for a unit and maybe get a $75 rent bump versus we can spend $3,000 and get a $50 rent bump. Why would we spend $10,000 to over renovate it? Yeah. So that's kind of the strategy there.
What kind of floors are y'all going back with? Are you going back with carpet or like LVP or what kind of flooring?
I normally would prefer to do all LVP, but this property in specific has, I'm going to get this wrong, but the subflooring is all concrete, I think, even on the second floor. Anyways, the way that it's structurally built, it is not very soundproof between the first and second floor. So we're having to put carpet back in, even though I really would prefer to not. But on this property, on the upstairs units, we're doing carpet in the bedrooms and then LVP everywhere else.
Yeah, I had a 2-story apartment complex that I sold a few years ago. And because of that same reason, I mean, we went LVP downstairs and carpet upstairs, even though I wish we could have gone all LVP. And that's kind of the problem with multi-story units, I really like, having single-story units. Like if it was all one level apartment complex, like 1-story apartments, I think that's a much better plan. But you lose out a unit money wise there too if you don't build up. So it's just kind of a game you have to play with about what's more rewarding,
Yeah, and I think some properties maybe that are newer or just the way that they're constructed are more soundproof in between stories, and so it's less of an issue. But this one specifically, just the way it was initially constructed. We love it's called garden style when it's the 2 floors. Then you don't have elevators. We don't like elevators. Those scare me. So we really like those 2-story apartment complexes.
Yeah, I don't want to have anything with an elevator. That just sounds like a major expense,
No, I've heard some really scary horror stories of elevators going down and there not being repairs. And
what kind of markets are y'all buying properties in?
Yeah, we buy in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and we have a couple in Texas. So those are our 3 markets. We're looking for landlord-friendly states. We're looking for places where the cost of living is reasonable. The other thing that we do differently is we only buy where the property managers we like are. So we literally are increasing our footprint around the property managers that have been really excellent for us, because what we found is just the wrong property manager can just kill a deal so quickly. And so it gives us the confidence in our underwriting and when we're pitching to investors that we're going to actually be able to deliver, because we've worked with these property managers before. They produce what they say they're going to produce. We know that they're going to keep our expenses under control. We know that they're going to provide a great place to live for our tenants. And so honestly, a lot of our strategy is around staying with property managers that we trust.
I'm with you. I like red states too, and that's one of the reasons I want to sell some of my stuff, because politicians can make or break a deal for you.
Yeah, I own some properties. I own quite a few of my personal properties and some JVs here in Colorado, and things have been changing a lot. And it's changed, it changes the way you underwrite a deal when there's new rules about, if a tenant has been, like in Colorado, they recently passed a rule that if a tenant has been in the property for a year, you now have to give them at least 60 days notice, and then they have first right of refusal back to that unit. So we were looking at this property that was super, super, super distressed, and tenants were paying like $500. We were 60 days out before we could get anybody out to renovate the unit. And then we had to give those tenants who were not the quality tenant that we wanted first right of refusal back to their unit. And it was like totally changed our underwriting.
So first, I've never heard of that. So in Georgia, we have to give 60-day notices. But first right of refusal, man. I mean, at the same price, or you can increase the price, or how does that work?
You can increase the price. I forget the exact rules around that. Whether there was a percentage to it, or you could. But maybe I think you could change the price to whatever you wanted. But I don't remember if you could re-qualify them. So like if they were paying $500 in rent and then you increase the rent to $1,200. They could say, yeah, I'll take it, but I don't think that you could rerun their income and make sure they are making 3 times $1,200, not 3 times $500. I may be getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's the way that we were having to run our numbers. So to the point, it's easier, especially at scale, right? Especially when we're talking 80, 100, 200 units, like those things make a big difference in your numbers, even 30 to 60 days on a tenant.
I mean, I remember, when we were in Cancun and Brandon Turner was there talking to us, I mean, it just kind of clicked in my bell. He was like talking about you can't have too many bridges. And he was talking about how, he had all these single family homes and then he sold them and then he bought an apartment complex and moved to Hawaii. I was like, man, I think I want to move to Hawaii. That's not really part of my plan, but I was like, yeah, I mean, with these single family homes, it's so hard to scale with, single family homes, duplex, or something like that, where we could go in and buy an apartment. So I could keep scaling with these single family homes and, doubling my money every year, and make $100,000 or so per door or whatever it is, we do, right. Or I could go and buy an apartment complex, make, a couple $1,000,000 and have my NOI at 300 and something grand a year based off some of the complexes I'm looking at or I've looked at, and it's like, I mean, those numbers can change your life dramatically.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, to your point, kind of what you're doing is what I did, which is that stack method, right? It's real hard to get an apartment complex if you haven't then built your equity and also your knowledge before, I guess I disagree with the mentality of, everyone should start off with a 50-unit apartment complex. I actually think it's great to start off with a single family. My first single family house was a terrible purchase, but it wasn't so much money that it was gonna make or break me when I figured out that I didn't know how to run my numbers and that it wasn't actually cash flowing, right? It was $100 a month. Like I can float that. If my first choice was a 50-unit apartment complex, I could have financially ruined my family because I didn't know what I was doing yet.
Yeah, I mean, like if you were to say go out and buy $100,000 house or $1 million apartment complex, and you have no experience in that space. You've never done it before. You never managed it. You never done the work. You don't know your numbers. I mean, you can really take a huge bath. I mean, $100,000 house or whatever, you start with is probably not gonna, disrupt your life if you lose a little bit of money, right? But I mean, if you gonna lose $1 million and you fuck that up, I mean, you can really destroy everything in life. And so I mean, you have to get started. You have to start small. I mean, I started with a house hack, and now I'm at 60 something doors. But I mean, you got to get
Yeah.
started small. I'm with you there. And so, like, kind of going back to what you just said, if someone wanted to get started in this space, if you had to start back over, how would you start?
I mean, my first house was a house hack, and that's how I'd recommend everybody get started. Whether
Yeah.
it's like I bought a single family house and rented out the bedrooms to my roommates, like whether you do that or you buy a duplex and you rent out the other one, or a fourplex, you can buy a fourplex on an FHA loan. Like, everyone in every market should be looking at that if they're interested in getting into real estate.
That's what I told my friends.
No-brainer.
I was like, I mean, I did the math. I bought a duplex, right, for 40 grand. And it was worth about 75. That's a lot of money. Where I don't know where your market is, but that's pretty good where I live, because economies are different, right? But so I bought this duplex, 40 grand. My mortgage, it was an FHA loan. I put 20% down on it. My mortgage was $309 a month. The other side was paying 375 when I bought it, and then I raised it to 495. And so I was basically living for free. And I was trying to tell all my friends, I was like, y'all don't really understand. I was like, y'all are buying these houses, to live in. I was like, but y'all can go buy a duplex or a quad. I was like, you can be living for free and you can start building equity. I was like, and then you can keep compounding. And none of them did the math. I mean, I did the math for them, but they just didn't take heed in their minds. And that's just different mindsets. But I mean, I'm with you. I think everybody should start with a house hack or something like that. I mean, because a duplex, a quad, or something like that. I mean, you can live in one unit and everything else pays for it. You can live for free for a long time. And I mean, I sold that. I bought it for 40, and I sold it for 95, 90 or 95, and I lived in it so it was tax free when I sold it. Because I'd already bought another house, but because of the timelines, it was tax free. That's pay capital gains tax on it. And so I mean, that's a home run of a deal. And then you just keep rolling that money over another. I rolled that money into another deal that I already had worked out. Paid cash for another house and remodeled the whole thing. So I bought a house for 15. I remodeled the whole thing. I was all in for 70, and it appraised for 148 grand. So you do the math. It's hard to
That's
beat
the
those.
magic of equity in real estate.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
that's what I love about it. I mean, you can make a lot of money there. And so with your experience, so how did you get into the syndication world?
Yeah. So I always say my story is so repeatable because I literally just listened to the podcasts and then did exactly what they told me, like it's not hard in that way. So I went to our local real estate meetup. I'd been going for 6 years, every month or 2 months, and just talked to everybody there, went out to coffee with people. And there was a couple guys in our group, and I just offered my services. I had just come out of having my second kid, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to like go all in on real estate. And I went up to one of the guys at the meetup and I said, hey, like I've got an operations brain. There's often like a visionary and an operations person, execution. I don't remember what the book is, but I said, I'm the person who can make systems, who can keep things running. I'm an operations person. Do you know anybody who would be interested in like hiring me part-time to like run their operations? And he said, me, let's start. And so then I just did they paid me a little, but I mostly worked for free and proved my worth, and also, to be honest, learned, right? There's no degree for being an asset manager in syndications. Like, that's not a degree. You just only learn by doing it. And so I just did a lot of work for free and proved my worth, and joined masterminds. And now I'm doing it basically full time. And now I do it not only for the group that I have, but my partner and I then went out and formed an asset management company where we go out and do asset management for other groups as well.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't even know you did that. And so, kind of relating back to what you just said, obviously we know each other from Action Academy, a mastermind we're in. We met in Cancun. We had an absolute blast, you know. But I mean, so how important is it to you to get in the right rooms and the right masterminds with the right people, and how has that grown your, I guess, knowledge and network?
Yeah, I mean, I still own single family houses if I'm not in masterminds and paying for growth. I've done 2 asset management masterminds. I'm in multiple multifamily masterminds. I have a performance coach now. I have paid my way through lots of conferences to meet people. You know, I don't think you grow in this industry if you are not doing those things. I don't see how you do.
You know, that's what I try to tell, like, some of my friends, you know, like, I got friends, we got like our own little small group. We don't have a name or anything for ourselves, you know, but we like meet about once a month or so, and they're all in like they flip land, and they got a pine straw. There's a lot of fucking money in pine straw, Bonnie. They got a damn pine straw business. They got beef farms, and I keep trying to tell them about, you know, like Action Academy and some of these other masterminds I'm in, and they ask me what the cost is, and I tell them, you know, I mean it's not a little bit of money, right?
Yeah.
And so, but they'll be like, man, I just can't believe you would pay that to do these things. And I'm like, y'all just don't really understand. I mean, you know, think about the knowledge y'all get just in this room. I'm like, you know, when you get in a room with people from San Diego or Colorado or other countries or wherever, I'm like, you're compounding your whole net. I mean, your whole everything, really. You know, I mean, you have new business. I mean, look at just the people in Action Academy who have joined other businesses and got all these other different jobs, like Carrie Pesh, you know, she joined Tim Woodbridge. Without Action Academy, she would never known Tim Woodbridge. And then you got Ben Call, and then he's got other people he's got Carly and a couple other people on his team. You know, people just don't understand. I mean, you got to pay to get in the right room, you know, but I mean, it's worth every penny, I think.
Yeah, I have 2 things to say about that. One, Brandon Turner always says, like, hang out with people who make your dreams look like a Tuesday afternoon. And like, it's so true that you think your dreams are so big and scary and hairy, audacious income goals. And then you get around people who are just doing that. And it makes you realize how attainable the things that you want are. And then the other thing, I'll share a specific example. So I started my journey back in like the syndication world back in the end of 2022. And I attended this conference called the Best Ever Conference. And, you know, all this is coming out of my pocket. So I paid, you know, let's say $3,000 by the time I traveled there and paid for the conference and the hotel or whatever. And I met a bunch of people and I was nervous and I didn't know what I was doing yet. And I just closed a deal last month from somebody I met back in, you know, the end of 2022. Like, sometimes these things also just take time to pay out, but that contract will earn me at least $20,000, right? And so there's a payoff for these things, but they sometimes take time, but they almost never don't pay off. If you're showing up intentionally, if you're trying to get to know people, if you're trying to provide value, is going to pay off.
I mean, that's what I love, you know, like my dad, my wife, and like all my friends. I'll be like, I'm going to a conference in Atlanta, I'm going to Cancun, I'm going to this. And I'll be like, they're like, oh, well, you're just going down there to party, like Cancun. They're like, well, all you did in Cancun was party the whole time. And I'm like, I was like, well, that was only a little, very little portion of it. I like, I was
Yeah.
like, y'all just don't understand. I was like, because y'all aren't in this space. I was like, if y'all got in these rooms and met these people and like heard all these strategies, I was like, I mean, it pays out major dividends. And I try to tell people they should come with me more, but like they just don't ever want to come. And I really can't. I mean, you go to like some of these conferences, about $300-400, and you got to travel there, it's $150 or whatever, and then you got to get a damn hotel. I mean, it's $1,000 $1,500 every time I go to one of these conferences, because you got to eat, out there's sometimes you drink a little bit, and so but I mean, these conferences, I couldn't agree with you more, or these mastermind groups, however you want to call it, right? I mean, they're worth every penny.
Yeah. And then you get to expense it to your businesses, and it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, I write it. My accountant, he'll be like, "So what is this trip to Cancun?" I'll be like, "Well, it's part of a mastermind." And he's real hands on. I mean, you got to have a real good accountant, to do things like this, But I mean, it's everything's a write off. Everything I do is a write off, pretty much. I mean, I write off trucks, house, office space. I mean, all these trips I go on. I think I'm going to go to Atlanta next Friday, maybe Black Friday. I think we go to Atlanta. We're going to have an AAC meetup there next Friday night. I think with Tony Carzano. Tony C. But I can't pronounce his last name, and a couple other people. We're going to go to a brewery and stuff like that.
So fun. And then you build these relationships, and they may not pay off tomorrow, but they will pay off at some point.
Did you join the action? Did you do the lifetime membership?
I have not yet.
Oh, well, you got to do it. We're not letting you
just
leave us,
joined
Bonnie.
like 3 months ago.
Well, so see, like my renewal was up at the end of this month. And so it's either like renew now for life or renew at the end of this month. It's been the same money. I was like, well, I'll just go and do the lifetime renewal. And so we've definitely got a lot of great information and knowledge from you. I really appreciate you coming on today. Is there anything else you want to tell the world about anything real estate that you've done or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I love the syndication world, and I think it's a great place to be. I think it's a great way to provide value for investors, but I think sometimes it feels a little overwhelming to people. And I would just also encourage people, like, everybody should house hack, but also the smaller multifamilies can be such an incredible place to build generational wealth. And that doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to be your entire life. If you can buy a 4, 6, 10 unit complex and hold that for 15 years, like, that is not sexy, and it will build generational wealth. And so I also just encourage that for people. I am still active. I'm on the syndication side, and I love that, but I also am still active. I just closed on a 14 unit this year with a couple partners, and I'm daily still looking at 4, 5, 6 units for me to own personally, because I also love that strategy of just, buying and holding, and those being assets that I hand down to my kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so life changing. I mean, you get started with these small deals, like my first thing was a duplex, a house hack. My second one was a single family house right across the road with Bird. Do the Bird method on, we still rent it out, right? And then I bought another house, and then my fourth transaction, I think it was my fourth transaction, was an 8-unit apartment complex with a doctor. I'd helped with another. He was involved in a Vitafuse business, and then I met him through the Vitafuse. He needed some retail space there. So, friend I went to high school with, she introduced me to him because she's a nurse. She was involved in it at the time. And then he came to me a couple of years later because we built a real good friendship through that, business relationship, And he came to me a year or so later, and he was like, "Hey, I got this restaurant deal. I got screwed on. I need you to help me out with it." So I helped him out with that. And then while I was helping him out with that restaurant deal to get him unscrewed, sort of, he was like, "Hey, I know you know in real estate, and you got a couple rental properties." He's like, "If you ever want to go in on anything together, he was like, let me know. And I was like, and I had a deal. I was trying to get my partner at the time to go in on this deal with me, but it was 340 grand. It was a pretty large buy, it's 8-unit complex, and I couldn't talk my partner into it. And so I was like, hey, I got this $340,000 apartment complex. I was like, we can go in on it 50-50. And we bought that for 340. And he just kind of really just took me. I ran through the numbers, and he really just took me at my word. It's really kind of impressive how people just take you at your word like that, and put so much trust into you. It's a super reward, but it's also a risk for everybody, especially people putting the money up on the transaction side, because of the arrangement we had worked out originally, and still sort of have worked out on some deals. He makes more money than me, and so he put majority of the capital up, and I dealt with all the problems and did all the work to it and dealt with everything. And we were 50-50 partners. We bought it was an 8-unit complex. We bought it for 340, and we sold it like a year and a half later for 600 grand. And you talk about, and in that timeline, we had already made like an NOI of like 80 grand, you know? And so, you talk about numbers like that, and then you 1031 it into other opportunities that are exact same way. That's really life-changing money. I know it changed my life for sure. And I'd like to say it. I would say it changed his life, but I wouldn't say it changed his life as much as it has mine.
But he probably had those
Maybe.
deals earlier in his life that changed his trajectory.
Well, I know he's got other investments and stuff, and he's got a really, really good job. But he don't want to do his job forever, because you get burned out on your W-2 job. And that's why all of us in Action Academy are trying to leave our W-2 job. And so if people are trying to reach out to you or get involved in like a syndication or something like that, how would they reach out to you?
I have a website. It's just bonnywayman.com. It's BONNYWAYMAN.com. And so you can find out about asset management services there, about Wild Oak Capital. We are raising right now for a really cool deal in Texas. So I'm excited about that. And then also I run a local meetup here in Colorado. If anybody is ever interested in attending, you could make a vacation out of coming down here. And email and contact information is there.
I've never been to Colorado, but it's definitely on my list. They happen to have a couple things out there I really enjoy partaking in, and that I want to come out there and visit.
Yeah, I live in Durango. It's like snowy mountain town in the winter and like gorgeous hiking in the summer. So,
yeah. And this has been the River of Money podcast with your host, Burton Newcomb, and my girl, Bonnie Wayman. And we've talked all things real estate, small business entrepreneurship. And if you have any small businesses or real estate experience you want to talk about, you can find me on Instagram, @ Burton Newcomb, BURTONNEWCOMB. And until next time, keep the River of Money building and keep the River of Money flowing. Y'all have a great day.